This video is brought to you in collaboration with WoWhead.com. Hello everyone! We done a deep dive on the story of the Zandalari, but not so much about the Kul Tirans yet, so that's about to change. From the knowledge that we knew before we could party in the area, to the stories added with Battle for Azeroth. This is the story of Kul Tiras. Way back when, over 2700 years before the Dark Portal opened up, we had King Horde of Arathor, who was uniting the human clans, team up with the High Elves and dominated the trolls. After his reign had ended, new generations of humans expanded the nation of Arathor in size and in power. Some of the humans would expand to the coastal region known as Gilneas, where they constructed a series of robust harbors. The settlers fished the waters and engaged in rigorous trade with the other parts of Arathor. The boldest of these sailors ventured into the open waters around the area. Legends of the Tide Sages tells us that in the beginning, they were blind, they were lost, they left the howling streets of their homes in search of greater existence. In the end, they found the sea, or rather, it found them. Though the waves howled as home did, it was not the shuttered existence we knew. For most, that was enough. With each rive came loss, but sustenance. With sustenance, freedom. We scanned the horizon for home, sailors' eyes on the horizon day and night. We knew not what we sought, a matrimony of earth and tide that might shelter our children from the turmoil of life at sea. Stormsong was the first to hear them, not the crashing waves at the surface, but gentle whispers, imperceptible to all but him. They guided his mind ever deeper, revealing untold truths of the powers within him. We would never be the same. It began simply. Stormsong's gift guided fish into our nets and fresh water into our mouths. No longer were we slaves to the elements. We were the masters. As our lord's gifts grew, others too heard the whispers. Soon the very wind in our sails was ours to command, the waves pushing us ever onward into the night. With time, our hulls impenetrable to even the worst denizens of the deep below. The depth's guidance became clear. They guided us home, to a new home. The land was rich and could provide for endless generations. We guided others to us, sending our sages to ensure safe passage. How Stormsong laid claim to the most fertile valley in the northern reaches. It took our Lord's name as tribute for our gifts, and we were home. A tale that explains how the Tide Sages came to be. Sea priests that are able to commune with the elements and guided their people to Kul Tiras. Stormsong might have had an easy enough time claiming the fertile valley in the northern reaches, but not all of Kul Tiras was so easily taken. After all, it was not a completely empty land waiting to be used. There were already beings living there, some a little bit more hostile than others, like the savage group of warmongering barbarians that called themselves the Drust. We know that the Vrykul devolved into what we know as today to be humans under the influence of the curse of flesh. The Drust also find their origins with the Vrykul. Similar to the Kul Tirans, they took to the sea and settled in this region. Drustvar was their ancestral home, and they did not take kindly to these strangers in their lands. The Kul Tirans first tried to go for peace when they landed, but the Drust, they went to war immediately. This carried on for countless years, until the ancestors of House Warcraft decided that something had to be done. When peace wasn't an option, the early Kul Tirans started to fight back. The Warcraft have always been a hardy folk, but the Drust's magic was strong. Led by Goraktul, they used their druidic powers for dark rituals and massive damage. But some amongst the Drust were not down with what Goraktul was doing. These so-called foreign speakers joined Kul Tiran society, and they taught the ancient ways to those who heard the calls of the wilds. For generations, they have been the guardians of balance in nature, the keepers of the cycle of nature, of life and death. Despite these new teachings, the Kul Tirans, they were losing their war against the Drust. In the end, it was their scholars that managed to turn the tide. They began to uncover weaknesses within the Drust's magic, like silver and alchemical fire. They compiled what they had learned into a treatise on weapons and tactics that could be used to defeat the barbarians. The Order of Embers was the name given to those who took up the arms against the Drust. Using the tools and methods uncovered by the scholars, they were able to counter the Drust's magic and ensure their victory in the war. They even pushed their great leader Goraktul into retreat. When he ran out of living warriors, he decided to create a brand new army out of constructs, but even those were able to bring in the victory that he desired. Aaron Waycrest, still a colonel, leading the final assault, stabbed Goraktul. But while stories of this event, they always said that he killed him, Goraktul did not die. Wounded and broken to be sure, but not dead. Goraktul and his followers retreated into Frost, the Blighted Lands. This is a land of death, decay and torment, an area that we would call the Emerald Nightmare. Here they would stay, regaining their strength and trying to figure out a way to return to the physical world. Meanwhile in Drustvar, Aaron Waycrest was given a title of Lord, and from that point on it would be his bloodline that would rule all of Drustvar. Kul Tiras, the land rich with metal ores and other valuable natural resources, it would prosper and thrive. The kingdom of Arathor eventually split apart, while the island bastion of Kul Tiras, it continued its traditions of trading and shipping. They did come with dangers of his own, of course, amongst them pirates and sea monsters, breeding a very tough and proud kind of people. The city-state boasted a massive navy, the greatest in all of Arathor. Its most daring captains explored the coast of the Eastern Kingdoms, returning with exotic goods and tales of strange lands in the remote corners of the continent. It's amongst these daring captains where the ruler of all of Kul Tiras would emerge, but the history of it is not really fleshed out. We only know it as far back as Lord Admiral Dalen Proudmoore, but we do know that House Proudmoore would rise up to lead Kul Tiras from their seat of power in Borellis. This is the capital of Kul Tiras, located within Tiragard Sound. Dalen's powerful fleet and seafaring knowledge, it made him a powerful ally for the Alliance of Lordaeron that was formed to combat the threat of the invading hordes. Though the war was won, it was not an easy victory, with many casualties on both sides, including his oldest son Derek Proudmoore. He died while fighting together with his father, died to the flames of the enslaved Red Dragons. Yet the Alliance was able to save Azeroth and force the orcs to either retreat or surrender. Those that surrendered were placed within internment camps. Some might say that death would have been a kinder alternative, yet all the same, Dalen would remain a loyal ally to the Alliance despite peace making it splinter. Meanwhile, his remaining family members were still back home at Kul Tiras. There was his wife, Catherine Proudmoore, his second son, Tendrit, and his daughter, Jaina. Tendrit and Dalen don't really have a whole lot of history together, but that's not surprising, since Tendrit, he was considered to be non-canon, not part of the official lore, until they changed their mind for Battle for Azeroth. Jaina is another story, quite a large one in fact, and she was very close to Dalen.
Child be mine. The Admiral's will, his whole entire world, for as long as stars do shine.
Promise you'll come back?
I'll weather every storm if I know you are waiting for me.
Time to go, Jaina.
I love you, Papa.
Come topside, sweetheart.
When her talent for magic was discovered, her mother had to move heaven and earth to smooth her path. She had to fight Dalen to allow Jaina to be trained in Dalaran. Yet, she was able to convince the Lord Admiral, and this would put Jaina into contact with some of the greatest heroes and villains that Warcraft has ever known. She even came in close contact with the royal family of Manethil. Prince Arthas would become the one that she gave her heart to, but as most of you know, Arthas would fall to darkness and bring ruin to their kingdom. Plague and death would rule the lands of Lordaeron, to which Bolvar Fordragon, he sent out his daughter Talia to Kul Tiras to be safe from the scourge. Dalen personally tasked his most trusted knight, Cyrus Crestfall, with raising a girl, which saved him from joining them at Proudmoore. She was taught how to fight, how to ride, and how to sail. She grew up to be a badass with a kind heart, earning a rank amongst the Proudmoore guards. Meanwhile, Jaina would take the survivors of Lordaeron and come in contact with the new warchief of the Horde. Together with Thrall, she fought side by side against the might of the Legion, bringing down Archimonde himself. Thrall and Jaina worked very hard on getting some kind of peace going between the factions, but not everyone could so easily forget about the past. Her father surely couldn't, not after fighting with the Alliance of Lordaeron and losing his son. He found Jaina at Proudmoore, and he could not see that Thrall's horde was a different one. He refused to listen to his daughter, and Jaina made the impossible choice. She decided to step to the side, while Thrall and the horde, they moved to the Proudmoore to take care of her father.
Father, why wouldn't you listen?
With the survivors returning home, news of Jaina's betrayal reached Kul Tiras, and Dalen's people cried out for vengeance for his death, but the rest of the Alliance did not seek it. The plague of undeath in Lordaeron had already left the Alliance reeling, and its leaders had little pity for Dalen Proudmoore, who had launched a war of aggression on his own authority. In fury, the people of Kul Tiras isolated themselves from the rest of the Alliance, but their anger was not focused on King Varian Wrynn or any of the other Alliance leaders. Instead, they grew to hate Jaina Proudmoore, the daughter who had betrayed her family. The song she and her father used to share now became a cautionary tale to remind the people of what she had done.
I heard, across a moonlit sea, the old voice warning me. Beware, beware, the daughter of the sea. Beware, beware of me.
The death of Dalen would shock Kul Tiras and send her down a road of problems all around. Jaina's mother had to deal with a massive blow as she lost her husband, forced to take up the mantle of Lord Admiral of Kul Tiras. Not only had she already lost her son, not only did she now lose her husband, her own daughter let it happen. And then there was Priscilla Ashvane whispering in her ear. She too had lost her husband at Proudmoore, but did not have the best intentions for Catherine in mind. She was now the leader of the fourth and final ruling house within Kul Tiras, namely House Ashvane. Whereas Proudmoore held dominion over the military, Ashvane holds dominion over their funds. A power couple when working together, but incredibly dangerous when one wants to betray the other. Then in Drust, we see House Warcraft fall to the ancient darkness that they believe was once defeated. Lady Meredith Warcraft, Lord Arthas Warcraft, and their daughter Lucille live in their manor, their family line putting them in a position of power, ruling the land of Drust. Visions of the past, it shows us that Lady Warcraft was always ruthless and willing to do whatever she thought was best for the family. When her daughter fell in love with Alexander Treadworth, she did not approve. He was not good enough, just a common merchant, unfit to marry her daughter, no matter how much in love she might be. Assassins were hired by Lady Warcraft to make sure that this union would never happen. So when her husband fell ill, Meredith called to any power in the world that might have been able to save him. No price was too high to pay, and in her darkest hour, Lord Goraktul answered the cry and promised that death would never part the couple for a price. House Warcraft had once defeated him, and now they will be his ticket back into the real world. Drust is plunged into darkness, covens an ancient magic of the Drust, covering the land once more. Then, in Stormsong Valley, the benevolent voice of the Type Mother. It has changed in recent years. Communing with the seas, it does not come without its risks, as the sea holds many dark and powerful creatures, like the Naga with the Queen Azora, who are allied to the old god Zoth. She has plans with the Kul Tiran fleet, whispering to Lord Stormsong of House Stormsong, taking him and the Order of Tide Sages into darkness. Normally, they would bless their ships before they set sail, but now they were convinced to use their powers and capture it. Captain Tendred Proudmoore, the fearless explorer, and their proud Kul Tiran sailors. At some point, they sailed into uncharted waters, and along the way, a mighty storm at sea had taken him. They're believed to be lost. Another blow for Catherine, another member of her family now gone. Meanwhile, time did not stand still, and with the defeat of the Burning Legion, some thought that it might be a time of peace that was coming to the world. Instead, we saw Sargeras stab the planet of Azeroth, greatly hurting the world as well as the Titan spirit inside, and all across its surface, Azerite pops up. This powerful resource could change the face of war in Warcraft forever, to which the Horde and Alliance, they do what they do best, and they go into another war. That massive sword does not really go unnoticed, nor the war that followed. So naturally, news of this, it reached Kul Tiras. Some suggested that the Horde would not care for their neutrality, so perhaps it was in their best interest to team up with the Alliance. But Catherine, she refused. When they had asked for help to avenge Dalen's murder, they spat in their faces, and to beg for aid now, when they're not even under attack, it will make them seem weak. They will not be reaching out to anyone, not after what happened with Jaina. Kul Tiras will protect its own. This made things a little bit awkward for when the Alliance showed up to ask Kul Tiras for the aid in the war. Jaina was fully aware of what her people thought of her, yet for the sake of Kul Tiras and for the sake of the Alliance, she tried to convince them anyways.
I have come to ask Kul Tiras for aid, on behalf of the Alliance.
The Alliance? Ha! Where were they when we begged for their help? When our husbands and sons and brothers were slaughtered at Proudmoore?
Do not blame the Alliance for my actions.
So you admit it? You admit that you were responsible for the deaths of our men?
I was. But I will do anything in my power to ease the suffering of Kul Tiras.
Catherine, enforce our laws. The punishment for treason is death.
Not exactly a warm reception. And while Jaina is left in the hands of Priscilla Ashvane, heroes of the Alliance, they're thrown into prison complex of Tol Dagor, which is run by Ashvane herself. Thankfully, there are some amongst the Kul Tirans able to see that they need the Alliance as much as they need them. So the heroes are saved from prison by Flynn Fairwind, former pirate captain, and Talia Foredragon, to which their adventures within Kul Tiras can begin. Now I've done the stories of the dungeons and the zones in full detail, but I'll do a quick summary for those of you that clicked on the video to figure out the story within Kul Tiras. We're informed that the House of Kul Tiras don't work together like they used to. In Drust, we find out that Goraktul has made his return and has now corrupted House Waycrest. We party with their daughter Lucille, reform the Order of Embers, and we take on the darkness of the Drust. Her parents, now undead monstrosities, they're put to the sword, while the real Goraktul, he still waits for us within the Blighted Lands, but at least the area is a bit safer. In Stormsong Valley, we see that those who worried about the Horde not caring about the neutrality, they were proven right. The Horde strikes out preemptively, their spies reporting in that the farms and villages of Stormsong Valley, they're sending supplies to Kul Tiran soldiers. It's only a matter of time, they believe, before they do the same for the Alliance troops, and this cannot stand. They will see Stormsong for the Horde, cut off their supply lines, and establish a foothold for their forces. The Alliance naturally strikes back, while also discovering that some of the Tide Sages have now allied themselves with Queen Azora, and by extension the old god Nazop. Darkness is spreading across the land, and they don't really seem to care that the fleet has gone missing. We team up with Brother Pike, a Tide Sage with a clear head, able to see that what is going on is not the right thing, and together we cleanse the corrupted organization, as well as figuring out that the fleet is not entirely lost. Though he personally cannot call the mariners home, at least we know that the ships are still out there. Somewhere anyways, the fate of their fleet, it now lies with the Proudmoores. Then in Tidegard, we uncover that Azerite did not only change the war for the Alliance and the Horde, it also made quite an impact right here in Kul Tiras. Ashvane is gathering and weaponizing a whole bunch of the Azerite, scheming and plotting with the pirates that are gathering within Freehold, led by Harlan Sweet, the guy so ruthless that he pushed Flynn out of the pirate life. Sweet is now uniting the different bands of pirates under one banner, namely the Ironside Raiders. Whereas Freehold was once upon a time a haven for pirates, scoundrels, and those who wish to live free of Kul Tiran control, now it's the Ironside Raiders that rule the city. With their forces and weaponized Azerite, they plan to take control of Kul Tiras away from Catherine. But together with Cyrus, Flynn and Talia, we uncover their plans, we find the evidence needed, and we force Ashvane to run. Run, but not disappear, as she would make a return, a display of her full force. But all these events had Catherine realized that perhaps the Alliance returning to them was not such a bad idea. She had foolishly handed over her daughter's fate to Priscilla. A mistake that she regretted greatly. So heroes of the Alliance, they were asked to make things right, track down Jaina, which led them into the Blighted Lands. Here, they not only confronted the real Goraktul, they also reunited mother and daughter. The whole ordeal made the Lord Admiral better understand what had happened to the Daughter of the Sea, the road that she had traveled while away from home, and together they left that horrible nightmarish place. Now, with Ashvane ready to seize Borellis and take Kul Tiras by force, Catherine knows exactly what she needs to do.
Our harbor defenses won't be enough. Father's pendant.
For generations, the heart of the Kul Tiran fleet. I thought that hope had returned with this seal. That perhaps I could call the fleet home, as your father did. I was wrong. It was never meant for me.
There you are.
them what Kul Tirans are made of!
As Tendred and the fleet are saved by his sister, Ashvane now faces overwhelming odds and has no other choice but to surrender. She is placed within the prison that she once ruled, whereas Jaina becomes the Lord Admiral of Kul Tiras, and they officially rejoin the Alliance. They now have their fleet with Tendred back. The house have been saved from the darkness that they were facing, and they're more than ready to stand with the Alliance in the war against the Horde. This so-called war campaign has both sides construct outposts in enemy territory. Most notably, to me, is probably Rexxar taking on Stormsong Valley. The Magnafall that took Daelin's life now walks the lands of the Kul Tirans. Assaults happen frequently, many lives are taken, while some are brought back in on death. Yet the Alliance does not stand still. With Kul Tiras at their side, they make their plans to assault the heart of the Zandalari Empire and remove one of the Horde's most powerful allies from the war. Last time that their ships even came close to the capital, it did not end too well for them. Now the defenses, they're no joke, will need a plan to make it work. A plan that involves placing some massive explosives and drawing out the majority of their forces into Nashmir. With the Horde distracted, a quick strike team could have the king of the Zandalari surrender and bring the war with the Horde that much close to an end. But that would not be the case. Rastakhan did not rule his people for over 200 years without reason. With the power of the Law of Death at his side, he refuses to surrender. A fight till the bitter end follows, which has quite the opposite effect. Instead of making them surrender, what really accomplished is lighting a fire in the heart of the trolls and push them that much closer to the Horde. But adding them as an allied race has not been done quite yet, nor have the Kul Tirans. They will become available at some point though, and when they do, you'll have the option to make one of those thick monster hunters for yourself. It could be a druid, going back to the history with the Drust, a hunter, warrior or mage. Not surprising of course considering Jaina Proudmoore. Monks, which I personally find really interesting, especially since the paladins are not on the menu. Paladins were originally created with the whole Alliance Lordaeron thing standing up against the Horde, so you would imagine that the Kul Tirans, that they're familiar with the teachings, but apparently they stepped away from the paladins. Instead, they picked up the ways of the monk, which we saw with Chen Stormstout in Warcraft 3, and then officially introduced within World of Warcraft with the expansion Mist of Pandaria. It's not impossible to explain that the Kul Tirans have knowledge. Some Pandaren, they have a lust for traveling, and they could have easily made the way to Kul Tiras and pass on their fighting style. Other options include the priests, rogue and shamans, which calls back to the history of the Tide Sages. The racial mount is a Kul Tiran charger, another horse to be added to the collection. Not only does the Kul Tiran military prize itself on mastery of the sea through their vast navy, they also do so with their armed cavalry. Now it's very hard to say what the future is going to bring for Kul Tiras. We know that Mechagon is on the agenda, a vault within Kul Tiras that's going to open up and reveal an ancient lost gnomish city. This might tie in with what happened to Mechatort during the Battle of the Zandalari. We also know that N'Zoth and Azshara are on their way. A taste of what to come in Stormsong Valley with the Crucible of Storms. A long submerged evil stirs beneath the Shrine of the Storm. The whispers that drove Lord Stormsong to madness echo within the depths. A siren song of eldritch power. Those who listen and obey prepare dark rituals to carry out their master's will. Whatever nightmarish schemes fuel their fanatical devotion, one thing is certain, they must be stopped. A taste of things to come. Well, right now in the game, you can already scout out the area and go through a pretty cool questline that's inspired by the Darkest Dungeon. I won't go into too many details of the Crucible, Storms and the things to come. I'm just very excited to see the return of everyone's favorite waifu. Then we have the Battle of the Zandalari, which inflicted some heavy blows to the Horde and the Zandalari, meaning that the Alliance, right now, they have the upper hand, but the war isn't quite over yet. The Horde have liberated Priscilla from Tol Dagor, right into a secret meeting with Sylvanas. Who knows what those two ladies are talking about, but I think it's pretty safe to say that it's not going to be good for Kul Tiras. They also obtained the body of Derek Proudmoore, the same Derek who died to the Dragon Flames, and they're planning to warp and twist his mind, turn him into a weapon. Where the Alliance attack them with an army, they will use one Forsaken to murder them in their sleep. Will Derek be able to resist, or will we see the death of Catherine to balance out the death of Rastakhan? What connection will we see between the resurrection of Derek and the resurrection of Jaina's childhood friend Kalia Menethil? What kind of relationship will there be between King Anduin Wrynn and Talia Fordragon? Is the line of Stormwind going to continue with these two? Still so much on the horizon. Who knows how Battle of Azeroth is going to end. I'm still hoping to have our final battle against the awakened Titan spirits that's currently slumbering in the planets, waking up with one hell of a hangover and very pissed off at the world for not focusing on healing her. That's wishful thinking, I suppose. But for now, you're familiar with the history of Kul Tiras. Let's hope that they release them as an allied race pretty soon. If you're looking for some more details on all the things that we talked about today, then check out the Related Wild article in the description down below. For now, thank you very much for watching, everyone. Subscribe if you like my videos, leave a like if you enjoyed this one, and until next time, guys, see ya!